The great threat in today's world is the loneliness of hearts oppressed by greed. Today's thoughts from the official Twitter feed of Pope Francis. Thanks for joining us for EWTN News Nightly. I'm Brian Patrick. It's Tuesday, the 22nd of July, and U.S. Catholic bishops and other Catholic employers are responding to this week's executive order against discrimination based on sexual preference. The bishops say the administration is trading the rights of gay and transgender workers for the rights of religious employers. The order provides no exemption for religious groups that object to hiring people who live that lifestyle. Now, the bishop said that the executive order is unprecedented and extreme and should be opposed. With the stroke of a pen, they said it lends the economic power of the federal government to a deeply flawed understanding of human sexuality. Melissa Swearingen works in government relations. She's a spokesperson for the USCCB president. Kellie Fiedorek is litigation attorney for the Alliance Defending Freedom. Kellie, this order applies only to federal contractors. How would Catholic organizations be affected?
Well, not only are Catholic organizations affected, but any faith-based nonprofit organization is impacted by this executive order and all the people that they serve, because the Obama administration has effectively said that we are no longer going to do business with anyone who disagrees with our personal view of sexuality.
So the employers not only are affected, but you mentioned the people they serve. How many are we talking about? What kind of people are going to be affected?
Well, this is really the untold story. The untold story is the many victims, the homeless, those who are victims of sex trafficking, the needy, the poor, single mothers, orphans. So many of these faith-based nonprofit organizations operate based on their conscience to serve these individuals, and they are the ones who are the true victims of this executive order, and they're being jeopardized in receiving the wonderful services these organizations provide, and that's truly the real tragedy here.
Melissa, there's a deep misunderstanding of all this. When the bishops oppose this, are they saying that people who are gay don't have the same rights to work as any of the rest of us?
No, absolutely not. We have a long history of talking about the dignity of the human person, the right to work, where we have a strong history of labor unions, of things that promote the well-being of the person. This is absolutely not about people being less welcome into our churches or less welcome in our institutions.
I wonder if either of you could give me a specific example when hiring a gay or transgender person could be problematic.
Sure. Well, I think partly that's not quite the right question. You know, it's not about an individual's needs always. Sometimes it's about the institution. In this case, we're saying the church should have the right to live out in freedom their beliefs. And we feel like the executive order is impinging on those beliefs and saying you can't hold a traditional view on marriage. You can't hold a traditional view of maleness or femaleness. And we think that's not fair. That's not right. It's a form of discrimination.
But Kellie, don't you think that if a person was hired for a specific position, that this is something that would have to be taken into consideration?
Well, every business should be free. They should be free to be able to hire people who are going to advance their mission of their organization. And that's what it ultimately comes down to, is the freedom to be able to follow, and as Melissa said, in the Catholic Church's situation, their teaching on sexuality, and not to be coerced by the federal government to adopt a view of sexuality that's different from some of these faith-based nonprofit organizations.
So the bishops point out an example here that's very interesting. So an employer who doesn't want a man who considers himself or a woman, identifies as a woman, to use the ladies' room. What would you do in a situation like that?
Sure. I think there's times that as a religious institution or as a church, you have to look out for everyone's protection and everyone's privacy. And I think we do have concerns of, do you really want someone that's questioning their gender identity influencing small children who may not be ready to ask those kinds of questions? So I do think we have concerns, and I don't know, Kellie, if you have anything more to add to that?
It's a very complicated issue.
It is, and I think ultimately it's important to consider the safety and privacy of women and children. They have an assumption that they will be safe when they enter into the women's restroom, and that's something that should be protected.
I think most people would agree with that. Thanks to both of you for joining us for this discussion tonight.
Thank you very much for having us.
Well, another